Welcome to the Harrison Township Planning Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. I almost said 12. May I please call the meeting to order at 7:05. Roll call, please.
Member Baccia?
Present.
Member Devlin?
Here.
Member Duncan?
Here.
Member Mulder?
Present.
Member Tominelli? Absent.
Excused.
Member Oparka here. And Chair Murray.
Present, thank you. May I have approval of the agenda as presented, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Ms. Devlin, supported by Mr. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have approval of our minutes from our August 13th, 2024 meeting, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented from the August 15th, 2024 meeting.
Motion by Mr. Mulder to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll support.
Ms. Devlin, thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our first hearing and review, please. Ms. Oparka.
Case number 21-24-S Mansour Companies LLC, 25210, 25240, and 25250 William P. Rosso Highway.
Thank you. Mr. Young, I know you do not have access to the display.
Right.
But did you want to give us a brief address?
Sure. So this is a application for a new multi-tenant retail and commercial building from Mansour Companies LLC. You may recall that they, end of last year, November, I believe, they appeared before us for a zoning request and were successful in getting the property rezoned to the general commercial district. The general commercial district allows a variety of retail, restaurant, and commercial uses as they are proposing. The development will be, at this point, it's the first phase proposed as part of a much larger multiple buildings for this development. This first phase would be on what they're showing as proposed parcel B out of 4 total parcels. Split up. I think the property is maybe 3 parcels right now, and they're going to kind of help combine and split ultimately into 4 parcels. So on this parcel B, they would propose to develop a 10,618 square foot commercial building. At this point, there would be space for 6 tenants, although the specific tenants or the uses have not been identified at this time. Although, according to the application, the 2 end spaces, number 1 and number 6, are proposed, according to their application, to be occupied by fast food or carry-out restaurants. Tenant space number 6 actually shows a drive-through window, so that would be a drive-through for that tenant. And then, being the first phase, they're also going to be developing additional improvements, obviously to support that particular building, but also to support some of the future phases, such as the stormwater detention area, utilities bringing in water from the township, and sewer from across I-94 to this site, a new entrance drive to Rosso Highway or N9 at this location to get into the site, and then a little bit beyond this particular development. So the applicants are here this evening. I know they have received a copy of our planning and engineering review letters. We did have a number of comments. There's even question about, is it worth to continue to have this on the agenda? I think there's probably a number of things that can be discussed that you could provide some direction and feedback to the applicant. So I think it would be beneficial for them to hear your thoughts and opinions about this particular project. There are some informational elements that need to be added to the plans. Look at my review letter, some of the things that I think are important to provide, have a little bit more information on. A demolition plan would be appropriate, given that there's a number of existing structures on the property, fences, fencing, a billboard, dwelling, a number of sheds. I would like more information about the kind of the ownership structure of this larger development. They're going to split it off into 4 parcels. I'm not sure if they're going to do that under just a land division or a commercial condominium or a commercial subdivision. And then again, the ownership structure, who's going to maintain, how are the common elements like the stormwater, the driveway, the utilities, who's going to maintain those. One of the comments I had a discussion with the applicant, the designer in particular, about the design of this building. It does not meet our township zoning ordinance's design standard to have minimum 75% hardy board siding in the nautical design. This development clearly is outside of a nautical area of the township. If you look at the design, in my opinion, it's very similar to what you would expect along Fall Road, and I think the design is quite attractive. Unfortunately, I don't think there's really leeway that we have. The ordinance rule is the rule. So I think maybe it's something we can talk with the applicant about is maybe I think they need to get a variance from the ZBA, but maybe a blanket variance for all the entire development, not just this one building with proposed design and whatnot. I don't see that there's flexibility really for the planning commission to vary from the ordinance.
Thank you.
There's some other things, a couple other things I wanted to mention with regard to traffic. If you remember, for the rezoning, they submitted a traffic impact study and a development impact study. I think some of the things that were recommended in the traffic impact study are not shown on this site plan, such as a dedicated acceleration or deceleration lane on eastbound on 59 by the entrance. And I'm also concerned with not allowing a left turn onto westbound on 59 means that they actually have to turn right and then go almost, it seems to me, like a half a mile over I-94 to get westbound. And then back over I-94. So I think that's an issue. In the original concept as part of the rezoning, there are going to be 2 entrance drives. Only one is proposed. If there were the 2, I think there would be able to avoid, and there is a crossover sooner. So I think that's something that we can discuss. A number of small things. I did want to bring up, and I know that the Planning Commission cares about pedestrian circulation, sidewalks, things of that nature. So there are no sidewalks proposed as part of this, at least on the site plan right now. And we have a requirement for the frontage of any new development to include a frontage sidewalk. And then I would also recommend internal sidewalks, so along the access drive, or maybe all of the shared access drives. I think there ought to be sidewalks, and there ought to be connections from the sidewalk to the buildings themselves. So that's missing. You do have the ability to waive sidewalk requirements, but I think that's something that should be directed. Wow, I don't think we should waive. And I think if you look across the street, Chesterfield Township Development is kind of similar, where they do have internal access drives with internal sidewalk system. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that tenant number 6, again, they don't have a specific tenant identified, but they do indicate that it would be a drive-through. So that actually requires a special land use in the general commercial district, a drive-through facility. So I'm not sure about the timing as to when the applicant would like to seek the special land use after they've got the tenant identified, or at the next meeting if they wanted to apply for a special land use, so we can schedule one post the public hearing. Just to kind of take care of that drive-through facility. So those are the items that I have. I don't think we need to go through in detail all the items, but maybe some of those bigger items are worth discussing this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
We have your letter as well. Did you want to address anything in particular, specifically?
There's not, I guess there's nothing that, I'll just kind of maybe briefly go over the items that I had identified that could be, either should be considered or should be recommended. There are no soil, currently there are no soil borings on the plan.
I'm sorry, could I ask you to speak up, please, or pull your microphone out? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay?
There are no soil borings that are on the plan, and I don't know if those are explicitly required, but with a site like this, when you're putting in a detention basin, it may be worthwhile to see what the water levels are to make sure that they're not assuming they're going to have storage that is not necessarily available if the water levels are higher than the bottom of their ponds. For water system, I would recommend at least one more hydrant on the other side of the building. They have two shown on the south side. One of them is a ways away from where the building is. For all the utilities, they have them set up just going to the proposed building. It may be worthwhile to have more of a understanding of maybe where the other buildings are going to be, so that those utilities could be at least planned for. Water system should be looped if at all possible. Let's see what else I have here. So one of the reasons why I think it's important that the future utilities need to be evaluated as an example would be the sanitary sewer connection. The township would need to know what kind of capacity is needed. One, to identify the size of the pipe that would need to go across I-94, and then two, just capacity-wise, so the township knows what that is. Let me see what else. And then just reiterate what Adam had mentioned about the traffic study and the fact that MDOT would likely require the recommendations that were in the traffic study that were done. I can't speak for them, but it makes sense that they would be interested in following that. Ultimately, it would be up to them on what they're allowing.
Thank you, Mr. Janet. And our fire chief, our fire marshal, do you want to address your items?
Yeah. So I reviewed it. The only deficiencies that I found on it from the fire department's standpoint is there's only one fire hydrant on the south side of the building near the fire department connection. This is going to be an operational issue, that's the only fire department and there's a fire hydrant in the vicinity of the property. We're going to need one on the north end as well, as the engineer stated. The other hydrant is directly in line pretty much. On the opposite side, the distances aren't shown there. And from an operational standpoint, we can't really use that one if we are fighting a fire. We have a truck connected to the hydrant and the fire department connection. We're going to need another hydrant on the north side.
Thank you, sir. Is the applicant available? Hi. Why don't you come on up and tell us who you are, please?
Exactly. Good evening, Jim Butler with PEA Group. Address is 1849 Pond Run, Auburn Hills, Michigan, 48326.
So, Mr. Butler, you have a copy of all of the letters, the planner's letter, the engineer's letter, and the fire marshal's
Yeah, we
letter?
did receive those earlier this week.
And then additionally, the information from Selfridge?
We did, yes.
Okay,
We also
excellent.
received
Thank you.
that. So yes, we are in possession of that.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to specifically discuss, knowing that you're going to need to provide an updated site plan as noted in
There's a couple items. First of all, the facade. Obviously, as Mr. Young had pointed out, this is kind of a divorced from the main Harrison Township. So I think we would like to go to the ZBA and ask for kind of a, like he pointed out, a blanket easement, but have some criteria, being so much glass, so much brick. Mr. Mansour, who's the owner of the, who's the applicant for the project, does high-quality developments. He likes brick, glass, low-maintenance stuff, but high quality, and to be consistent with kind of what's in Clinton Township as well. So we would like to pursue that option on this project. Really, the traffic study, we have been going, I don't know, 14 rounds now with MDOT on access. They have denied our initial request to kind of realign Marketplace Drive and rework the signal. That's been disallowed. They want us to have our traffic exit and, as Mr. Tanner and Mr. Young had pointed out, go across the 94, the east side of 94, and then the first crossover, come back. In the study, we also have a secondary drive, which is to the west, or the west of our site, which is parcel A. That drive will be installed when that part of the development comes online. So yeah, there are a few items. I know the photometric plan we need to provide, the sign location, the sidewalk, that's all stuff we can certainly provide. The fire hydrant, the additional fire hydrant, we have really no objection to that. Soil boring wise, we have not done soil borings. My company has been involved with several projects in that area, specifically the Kensington Church and the retail center. We have a lot of understanding of what that groundwater is and don't think that's going to be an issue. We have a large detention basin on that site that's south, and we don't have any groundwater issues with that. But soil borings will be done, and obviously that's more of an engineering than a site plan issue. The only issue with the sidewalk along Rosso Highway is, we have our section, but there's also another 200 and 300-foot section, which is the old Stover Road right-of-way, the old on-ramp to 94. We don't control that. We don't own it. It's owned by MDOT. So we can certainly put the sidewalk in, but I don't know who's going to do that connection in the future. So it's something to think about. We would like to have connectivity. It's important. You look through the entire corridor, it's there. So that's just something to think about. That's really it from our perspective.
Okay. Well, the sidewalk portion that you would be responsible, that the applicant would be responsible for, is the property, just the property.
Yes.
And would end at the property. So you are in discussion with MDOT then on placement and/or requirement of that second access road?
Yeah, we think we have a understanding with them on where that wants to be and where that it's a logical location. We approached MDOT first with, again, like I said, reconfiguring that marketplace. But when you do the traffic model, it doesn't work. It fails miserably. So one of the points of discussion we had with them is, could we put another crossover just to the east of where the existing one is? Well, the problem with that, it conflicts with the southbound traffic coming off of, eastbound traffic coming off of 94. So they were concerned about how that would function. It's a challenge. It's a real challenging situation with them to get that. Unfortunately, we're the last one in. So we're trying to resolve issues for our site. And unfortunately, everything's been fixed and done. So we're having to work with them to figure out a solution. We think having that westerly drive and then having our access drive, that's probably where we're going to end up with them.
And so conversations are ongoing and no firm decision has been made?
No firm decision, and obviously, we're going to have to do any of the improvements that come out of their approval.
Okay, commissioners, excuse me, I'm sorry, do you have any questions specifically for the planner, the engineer, or the fire marshal in this?
We've had some dialogue by email. I think we've got most of our questions answered. I know there's one other point that Mr. Young had pointed out in his review letter relating to equipment, ground-mounted equipment. This building is a flat roof with a raised parapet. The intent is to have any equipment on the roof and to be screened. There's a 48-inch parapet. The roof structure's here and then the raised parapet. You won't see the equipment. That's typically what we do in our developments. But no, I have nothing else. If you have questions of me, happy to answer them.
We'll go ahead and open it up to the commissioners and
Thank you.
start there, so pay attention. Commissioners, questions for the applicant or comments regarding any of the elements listed in any of the letters?
I had a comment about the sidewalk since we were just discussing it. So obviously there's that separation gap at the old access or the entry ramp onto 94, but at the end of the property, it basically dead ends at the new entrance ramp. I don't see where that sidewalk, there's no pedestrian traffic really, it looks like, or it'd be safe to go across 94 there or across the entrance ramp. Just that where the sidewalk ends, that it not just be a dead-ended sidewalk, but some way to deter pedestrian traffic to continue on, where it, at the corner of the property where it reaches the entrance ramp.
I'm gonna comment on
Sure.
that. Actually, the county just completed a whole vision plan for
Oh.
M59, and it calls for increased pedestrian traffic. I'm also currently working on a grant to look at ways to go over I-94,
Okay.
and MDOT just sent me a letter of support for that. So I definitely think that it's something, that gap, we can work with MDOT to get closed in the future. And there is a strong possibility of crossing I-94 in the future. May not be for 15 years, but we are looking at the possibility of that, especially because there's the commercial development on the other side of I-94.
And now knowing that information, I will take my comment back.
But I do see what you're saying, but I think unfortunately the option is just dead-ending sidewalks until someone picks it up and connects it.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's good news. I hope it's not 15 years.
For Hall Road, it might be. Maybe one of the other mile roads. across it.
Anything else?
I got a few questions on Mr. Tanner's September 13th letter. All right, it's a very thorough analysis of the documents. My question, though, is, of the items that are listed here, some strike me as being engineering required, but not required as part of site plan review. So my question would be then, of the items that you listed that are deficiencies, are you in a position to say which of the deficiencies would be directly related to site plan review?
I think of all the comments that I mentioned, I would agree, they're probably a little more engineering recommendations as opposed to site plan review. Truly, the one to me is the hydrant, additional hydrant placed by the building, attempt to loop the water system, just because that's a good idea, and then a better understanding of the sanitary sewer needs and how, capacity-wise, because that'll be a significant issue with the township as far as providing capacity and,
So that, under page 2, under sanitary sewer, is that, are you saying that is bullet number 1? Or is it all
It's- it- it's
three
ki-
bullets are necessary for site plan approval?
it's more a minimum, the general layout of the proposed sanitary sewer for the parcels, because I think we would need to know what their full capacity needs are. We don't want you guys to approve an 8-inch pipe when they need a 12-inch pipe to cross I-94 because their plans change, whatever. So,
Right,
um,
okay,
okay.
thank you.
I can add some clarity on sanitary sewer issue. You know, this is, as I've mentioned before, somewhat of an orphaned parcel. It doesn't have water service from Harrison Township or sanitary sewer service. We've had to approach Chesterfield, Clinton, for sewer capacity. Chesterfield was willing to do it. we're working actually with Macomb Township, or Macomb County, on connection across 94. We've been in touch with the DPW in Harrison Township. They're aware of our capacity and what our needs are. They're the ones that actually made the connection with Macomb County to talk to them about this route and doing this. So just a little clarity on it. The township officials are aware of what we're doing.
Thank you. I have a question for Adam. Mark, are you?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the facade and the, I guess this is just for my own information, also on the ZBA, is that, is there a hardship? Is there any other way, I agree 100%, I don't think we need to enforce this nautical field and this parcel, it would just make it stand out and people would be, why is that there? But is there a hardship?
Rosemary and I talked about this today when we brought up the same issue. Really, the issue is the inflexibility in the zoning ordinance, the way that it's written. There are no exceptions, there's no authority for the planning commission to waiver. And we think that it ought to be the planning commission that has the ability to waiver, because the ZBA is looking at practical difficulties related to the uniqueness of the property. And it's gonna be hard for them to find that when we're talking about building design. So ultimately, probably the bigger solution, which doesn't help them right now, is that you ought to look at the ordinance and provide some additional flexibility to the planning commission. I suppose, it's gonna be up to the ZBA to decide ultimately, but maybe there are some locational.
I was just gonna say proximity and location.
Proximity, location.
The fact that it's
is
not
somewhat
surrounded by
unique about
other-
this property being somewhat of an island or disconnected from the remainder of this township, and more connected, so maybe there's some
It's
practical
practically difficult to, meet that
In that respect.
intent of a nautical theme when you're so far away from the water or the entire
I mean, it is the northernmost,
tip.
right, tip of the township, actually, so.
So we think the ZBA is the solution that helps them with the project in their timing. But the long-term solution is not the ZBA, it's not sending
Right.
these requests.
Right. So in the short term, the planning commission could send a recommendation to the ZBA to approve
Or would that be my role as the liaison?
Actually,
I think-
yeah.
I wouldn't say a
Yeah.
recommendation, but if you have, if you're providing discussion or feedback to your ZBA liaison, to share that the
Argument
planning
in the
commission
favor of.
is not opposed, if you agree that the nautical and party board design is not appropriate given the context of the site, then share.
Well, why don't we go ahead and knock that off the list right now and close that door? I am definitely in favor of you sharing all and any proximity, location, specific elements to allow the ZBA to do their job and forego the nautical requirement.
I agree with that as well.
Anyone
Concur.
else? Yep, well, you've got all of us backing you, so whatever you need in requirement, and then we will get on the list, Melody and Adam, future discussion relatively quickly to make an adjustment to our ordinance to better accommodate situations like this.
The one in the instance.
That's how change of eyes is. Oh, I didn't think of that.
Okay, so whatever you need from us, other than you have all of our approval to,
I think just saying we've had the discussion, I just wanted to make sure we discussed it, and I think it should be not an issue with the ZBA. Especially if I see this conversation.
All right, great. So that closes that door. Are you okay with that discussion and the direction that we?
Absolutely, I think that's the appropriate way. I think there's a case to be made for some uniqueness here.
All right. Let's address, let's get the fire hydrant out of the way. That's a pretty important.
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing that.
Okay, all
Nope,
right,
that's
so-
not a problem.
All right, so second fire hydrant in the
Not a
proper
problem.
location.
Not a problem.
Okay, great. And that, Fire Marshal Shackett would be up for a second review before approval. Okay, and then the other elements. Well, actually, there really wasn't. It was the fire hydrant. Okay.
Do we want to address Adam's comments about the ownership of these
We
parcels?
could do that.
Yeah, yep.
And
Yep.
the maintenance of the shared.
Of course. What we're envisioning is doing land divisions. If it's available to do that, we will do it through a land division. The common elements, it's not a condo, but the common elements for the access, for sewers, utilities, detention pond would be handled through what's called a reciprocal easement agreement.
Would be, could you?
Reciprocal easement agreement, an REA. Very common, that it would be spell out the maintenance responsibilities for all the owners and show the areas that are under that agreement. So right now, we're showing, because the ultimate detention basin for the site, as you imagine, seeing this parcel, it goes to a triangle at the south end. Ultimately, we want to put in that area the detention basin. But unfortunately, it's very far away from wanting to develop the first phase. So not knowing really what's happening with parcel D, the larger parcel to the south, we've gone and just shown a retention basin at this point. Ultimately, that retention basin will go away. That storm sewer from the outlot parcels will be interconnected through a parcel D to the triangle, which will discharge into the MDOT right of way.
And the engineers had an opportunity, you're not hearing this for the first time, correct? Or are you hearing this for the first time?
That wasn't part of the plans, I don't think.
There is a retention basin.
Right, yes,
Right.
that part of it. I'm
Okay.
talking about the detention basin at the far end of the triangle. That wasn't part of it.
It wasn't a part of the plans, it was a part of the rezoning, it was in the rezoning package. So, but that, just so everybody knows what we're trying to accomplish. We did the exact same thing for the Kensington Church. They built the retail first, had a pond there. Ultimately, they built the Kensington Church, we put the pond to the south of Kensington Church. So, not forging any new ground here, just copying ideas I did before.
Questions from the applicants, questions from the commissioners to the applicant regarding that discussion on the retention and detention?
While we're talking about retention and detention, should we address this?
We can,
separate
yep, and
thing?
you do have a copy.
I do have a copy of that.
And the recommendation that's listed there within.
I do. Do I
Okay.
necessarily
And you have a
agree with it?
understanding?
No. Given the fact you got, I don't know, Lake St. Clair and our little retention basin, but rules being rules, I understand it. What we could do in the interim,
If
there
I
is,
could just, real
yes, ma'am.
quick.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is just a recommendation. We get this all the time with our developments. We know that the stormwater standards that the county provides require detention and retention. So this is just a recommendation. I don't think we need you to follow it strictly.
But abide by it as best as possible.
can.
Yeah.
Without lining it with steep sides and riprap and creating a fragmite use issue.
And taking into consideration the last sentence of that third paragraph of the letter dated September 13th, bird strikes can cause considerable damage to aircraft and depending on the size of the bird, fatal for the aircrew. I just want to
Yep,
state. that.
understood.
Okay.
Most of the time, they're required to drain out.
Yeah. Ultimately, when the final detention basin will be installed, it will.
Any other discussion on that item? Okay, so we talked about the sidewalk, we talked about, well, we kind of talked about the MDOT issue. We can't really go into much detail on that. We talked about the nautical theme, talked about the detention, retention.
On the MDOT issue, I mean, there are other areas along M59 where you do have to go a ways for a turnaround. In particular, Elizabeth, which I do use myself quite a bit. And I do feel that you are pretty much at the mercy of MDOT. So if they won't allow you to have a signal or a left-hand turn there, then you're gonna have to do what they're going to allow you to do.
We are at their mercy. We have come up with no less than 7 different scenarios for them.
So been there, done that, eh?
Got scars, you want to see them?
Well, it's just a tricky site too.
Oh, it is. It is a,
Close to
and
94.
I get it, but the only issue that I have is the fact that they've just completely ignored this site. That's our big issue, but that's our issue with them. We'll ultimately have to do what MDOT wants.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be okay.
Madam Chair, maybe for that discussion, I think what I wanted to mention, and I brought it up in my letter, is they're proposing at this time just the one entrance drive. And that one entrance drive will be a right turn only because of the way the marketplace is configured. But their larger development is proposing 2 entrance drives. So the other one would be in the northwest corner of the site, so I don't know how many feet, 400 feet further to the west. And if that drive is in, it seems that you can make a right turn, and there would be a westbound crossover within 300 feet, just before Marketplace Drive. So I think there is a practical solution. They may not want to do it, they may not want to pay for 2 entrances for this first phase, but I think that is a practical solution, and it may be in combination with signage to people who are exiting that facility, that, westbound traffic use Western Drive or something like that. I don't know, it's just a solution other than having to go almost a full mile there and back. I mean, from the perspective of like customers and employees, I would imagine it would very much appreciate having that.
I could agree with you there, yeah.
And I think that is something that, yes, MDOT ultimately has approval for those entrance drives to design the locations, but I think that is a site plan issue for traffic safety and convenience. So you could tell the applicant that there seems like 2 entrances make sense given the situation.
And that would go a long way to solve.
Right. At least in my mind, maybe I'm missing something, I don't know, but looking at Google Street View right now, it appears that you can turn right if you had that other entrance and get to the crossover right there.
It would be right there.
But to that point, understand we're the first phase. There is a second phase that is coming that will be responsible for that. And
There are also 6 tenants at this first phase. And a lot
it's a
of
10,000 square foot building. I mean, it's not going to generate the amount of, and I get your point, Mr. Young, about convenience. I get it. But the reason why we're looking at the second phase is to help that first phase. And they are going to be dovetailed together. That's the ultimate plan.
I guess I want to get some clarification from Adam and Rosemary. So we keep discussing this as phasing, and this is phase 1, and we have multiple phases, and how it impacts utilities. The original design or concept that we saw when these were switched from industrial, rezoned to general commercial, showed 3 larger retail spaces, like single-use spaces along Hall Road, and then the multi-tenant retail spaces further down to the south of those. This is a little bit different than the concept, but again, just a concept. But how do we treat this as far as phasing? Because we have no idea what those future phases are going to look like.
So I think from a practical standpoint, and John can probably speak to that too for the engineering, is that you really have to assume that there may only be one phase that's ever built. And it has to be self-sustaining. Water and sewer has to be in place to serve access to the site has to be in place. The stormwater has, or at least the temporary or the phase one stormwater solution has to be in place. So we have to assume that maybe this development never goes further than just phase one, and it has to be self-sustaining. And so that's where I think the point about, the second entrance drive is valid.
The second entrance drive, your retention, detention, utilities, I mean, if we're treating this as a standalone development, I mean, it needs to be able to sustain itself. So that's where I was curious with the phasing and how we should treat this without seeing what the future phasing will look like.
That's a good point, that the second phase will not happen.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was, Adam, from your letter, item number 13, with the drive-through on Unit 6. That drive-through would require a special land use where this is just site plan. So do they need to get the special land use prior to the site plan approval?
Well, I did look at I reviewed this project based on the standards for drive-throughs, specific standards for drive-throughs with the special. And the design of the site complies with, so in that sense, it doesn't affect the site.
Okay.
So there, I guess I'd be curious, in light of my comment, if the applicant considering about just submitting now or down the road. But I don't see it as an issue, personally. Do the special first.
But it would require
It
at
would
some
be-
point?
Yeah, it would be contingent on that number 6 not being occupied until the special,
Or not being utilized as a drive.
or not being utilized. It could be a restaurant. It could be
Yeah, we currently,
It's designed to have a drive-through.
Like an option.
Yeah, could be an option.
it can be an option. I mean, we don't have tenants lined up. There's interest, for sure. Like anything else, until you have something that's approved, they're not really interested in signing. You're just something on a piece of paper. So,
So you're saying it could be developed with the drive-through window in place, but couldn't physically be used until the special land use?
Well, I don't think you're going to put a drive-through
No.
lane if you don't have a tenant
Right.
identified. What I'm saying is that it wouldn't, obviously, what I'm saying is that the site wouldn't change, whether it's approved or not. They wouldn't put
the lineage in.
I was
Right.
going to say that without using the drive-through, that whole lane for access to the drive-through is unnecessary. So that's why I was curious if it was required.
And they don't need to have a tenant identified in order to apply for
Nope.
the special.
Yep. I just didn't know if it needed to happen prior.
You know, given the fact we're on Rosso Highway and I-94, you're going to get a drive-through user. So yes, we will be coming in.
Okay, well, let's address that second drive. Why don't we go into detail on that and get that out of the way? So we recognize the significance to the property and to the potential residents and customers, the use of that second drive. I don't have the distance on. Do you know offhand the distance between that first drive and that second drive? The planned location? I don't show it on here at all.
I think it's about 375 feet.
That would be about right.
So at minimum, 375 feet of access lane, the driveway, the actual driveway. Even though it may not extend into that phase two portion, at least it would service at least the first portion, the first phase. So an extended driveway between the first entrance and the second entrance. the most northwest entrance and the most northeast entrance.
Right, I mean, ultimately, their larger concept showed the two different ones serving the same thing. So I think it's just a question, and I don't, unless you're gonna be making a decision tonight, I think we're providing feedback.
No, definitely feedback, yeah. I don't think we're prepared to, I'm not speaking
We'll
for
let
the
them
team.
define it and think about how that would work. I mean, maybe they just wanna put one in.
Yeah, and
Maybe they would choose that one and not the one.
until they get something approved from
Yeah.
MDOT, they can't come up with a site
Yeah.
plan anyway.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, we don't
Yeah,
know
we're
if
kind
they've
of in
already had
limbo.
that conversation with MDOT. I don't know, I was gonna ask you, Adam, like, isn't MDOT also gonna be the one who can say how many entrances they can even put on all
Requirement.
those?
How many lanes?
And
And the space.
I am a proponent of the less entrances, the better,
But efficient,
yes. But, and there's already, the development to the east has a lot of two entrances too, so. I don't know what MDOT allows, and I feel like that's really, like we've said, they're at the mercy of what they're allowed to do. And like Danielle said, there's plenty of spots on Hall Road where you have to go a while before you can turn around.
So I don't know that we need to make a decision. Shared
So-
comments and let
you've heard our comments.
Yeah, we've heard your comments. Obviously, like I said, there's a significant cost associated with this development. Obviously, bringing sewer across I-94, drilling under I-94, we're getting water from Clinton Township. It's very expensive. This is not a one-phase development. I understand your point of wanting to make sure it stands alone. But like I said, the next phase, which is the one to the west, we are working on that to come forward.
There was also a comment about showing the demolition plans. Obviously, anything on the site we're looking at right now, are there plans to, in that first phase, to demolish all structures across the entire triangle site, or just on the current development area?
Right now, it's in the current development area. This is the first time in many years I've done this. I've ever had to do a demolition plan for a site plan. This will be a first. But obviously, the intense development that's on that site is where our building's going to be. So probably most of the stuff will go down.
And I don't want to mislead, as far as the demolition plan, it's the topo survey identifying what's going to be removed. That can be as simple as that, and maybe just a phasing, when it's going to be removed.
Okay.
Maybe which would
Fair
be
enough.
removed as part of this first phase versus future removal, as part of
And that's where I was leaning towards with the scheduling of the demolition.
scheduling of
Yes.
this.
That's fine. It's a fair question to ask.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
One other question that I noted in my letter. I was curious, maybe to the applicant about loading and unloading zone for this development. It's not shown on the site plan. Curious how they propose to do it.
Well, let's go in, let's take a look at that right away. So,
Typically, in a lot of predominant retail developments we do not have a dedicated loading, unloading area. We'll do loading, unloading. Deliveries will be scheduled off hours. And we'll use particular parking spaces, obviously at the rear of the building, because they will enter through the rear. A lot of deliveries come through the front door, through Q vans. But if it's more of a retail, resident, or restaurant use, obviously they'll come through the back door with that. We do have an area on the plan that we could squeeze in a loading zone if that's the preference of the planning commission. But typically, like I said, we have an area that will dedicate for loading, unloading off hours.
To that point, the zoning ordinance says an off-street loading and unloading area shall be provided whenever it is determined by the planning commission that the nature of the building or use is such that loading areas would be necessary. So you do have discretion.
and I'm certainly in favor of having it noted, specifically noted as such.
Or even to have notes added to the site plan talking about off-hours
Yeah,
delivery,
yeah.
Okay.
that kind of
Specific.
thing, just so that we have that on record.
Because we'll typically identify an area on the plan. where that'll occur. Again, logically, it wants to be at the rear of the building, and
you
we do
don't-
have parking
Yeah,
spaces
and you don't
at the
have
rear.
occupants yet, so you're unsure as of now
Yeah. Yep,
what your requirements will be.
That's, I wanted to look on the plan, it does show between the spaces at the rear of the building, through the rear of the building where you have the access road for the drive-through, there is a crosswalk through that island barrier. But, okay, I want to make sure if you intended to use those, if there was actual access.
Yeah.
across that.
actually, that's an access for the dumpster.
Well, okay,
That's what we use it for, but it can be used kind of for the loading, unloading.
Do you anticipate the landscape plan changing when you determine your monument sign?
I do not.
Center sign?
I do not.
Okay, so you won't have like ground plantings and stuff around
Yep.
there? You will have them?
Yes,
Okay. And
wheel
so
ground sign.
Then you'll be updating your landscape?
We'll have to update the landscape plan to show the ground sign location.
Okay, commissioners, any other items that you want to specifically get on record? We know we're going to be looking at a completely updated plan, site plan.
I'd say more of an updated plan.
Well, an enhanced.
There we go. There we go.
Okay,
just to the fire marshal's comment, where it says there are no parking fire lanes located appropriate on the site. Is that a requirement to have that shown?
It is shown.
Additional.
It is shown. That's what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're saying that is shown.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, they are. That is a requirement, and they are shown on the plans.
so the only deficiencies really are that second fire hydrant, and as you stepped out, we committed to that. That is a requirement, and the applicant agreed. Do you want to hit any of the other highlighted items? They're pretty self-explanatory
Yes, they are.
in extreme detail.
Mhm.
May I have a motion, please, for additional discussion?
I guess I'll make a motion and then we can discuss, I don't know, should I ask you how, like, do you wanna just wait to set a date, or do you just
You-
say a future
well,
meeting?
Let's,
When he's ready.
yeah, I mean, do you want to have discussion before your motion to get a clearer view?
I don't
Or
think,
discussion on the motion?
personally, I don't feel that we can set a date due to the fact he is being held by MDOT and other, it's not strictly on
It's out
them.
of our-
I agree, I just wanna,
Yes.
I wanna make the motion and then we
Okay.
can move through it. I will make a motion to table case 21-24-S Mansour Companies LLC to a future planning commission when they have addressed the site plan deficiencies that we have discussed this evening.
And all of the items listed within the letters provided that we haven't hit on specifically.
Yes.
I want to make sure that's clear. Motion to table the case to a future PC meeting until all of the deficiencies as labeled in the planners, the engineers, the fire marshal, and Selfridge is reviewed. The additional discussion regarding zoning, why can't I think of the word?
Variance.
Thank you, variance for the nautical theme, and then the discussion from MDOT, the decisions from MDOT. Anything else? May I have a second, please?
Support.
Any discussion on that motion?
You said all of the deficiencies, do you want to say something other than all?
Well, no, not,
Because there's some that he's working through.
well, if he addresses all the deficiencies in the letters, and then works through the MDOT situation and the Well, the MDOT covers a couple, and then the ZBA situation.
Yeah, I just thought you
Am
might
I
want to say
missing?
deficiencies, not all. Remove the word all. So say remove it.
Well, you know what,
There's-
you declared the motion, so.
Maybe I can
Yeah.
provide, I think maybe we're thinking maybe just different concepts and words, but, perhaps, because there's a couple items on the planner's letter that was already telling the PC to make a recommendation on, which is, providing more clarity. And I'm thinking I'm thinking of like the loading, unloading. I think we should clearly say, as opposed to leaving it vague, as the letter is set up, to give clarity in the motion that the applicant, I'm going to use these words, you can pick the words, but I think it's the concept we agreed to, that the applicant will address loading and unloading on the site by way of a description relative to their strategy to achieve the same, or just something that matter, because I heard that conversation saying, that if you're not going to provide it, just give us something in a narrative, how you're going to manage it on the drawing, right?
So
That was one that
specifically
took a little bit of a spin from the letter.
Okay,
And then the other one that takes a little bit of a spin from the letter is the sidewalks. I mean, I know we talked about it, but I think we should make clarity, because the letter leaves it for us to make a decision, so I think we should clearly state blah, right? I think we're all thinking the same. And then the other item that was still kind of out there yet was the 2 access drives. Because here it says, the recommendation is to provide the 2. We've had discussion. I don't know where we're going to end up with it, but I think the motion needs to at least be more definitive so that the applicant gets better direction when they leave here, if they're putting in one or 2. Those are the 3 things in my mind that, that took it from all, then everything else is all, other than those which were still requiring
I-
clarification from the PC.
and I see the access drive as being, that's kind of out of our, I mean, that's going to be led by MDOT, really. They're going to determine placement. We can recommend, we
Which
can.
is then going to be reflected on the site plan.
Yeah.
Comes back.
Yeah,
So I guess that's what was in my head when
Oh,
I
okay.
was thinking, don't say all,
Don't
say
say all.
deficiencies. Does that make sense?
I agree. Because there's still things that are up in the air, and they might be up in the air when you come back.
Yeah, like in the stormwater engineering, that could change things too.
Address the deficiencies as stated and discussed.
Okay, I will amend my motion to say that the applicant is going to address the deficiencies we discussed at this meeting. In both,
As for
And
the-
as stated in the letters.
and as stated in the letters.
And as for the sidewalk,
For
that
the
left it up to
sidewalk,
our
we are
discretion?
requiring
Okay.
the sidewalk.
I will amend my
Planning
support.
commission is requiring the sidewalk and requiring that you identify loading zones on the plans or show a formal loading zone. For sure.
loading and unloading zones. And you amend your support. Okay, any additional discussion on that motion? Does that work?
Yes, thank you.
All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Okay, you are tabled. We will see you,
So-
we'll see you in the future.
Question mechanically related to the variance. We obviously would have to go seek an approval from the ZBA. Obviously, one of timing, depending on how that all falls out. It may be before we come back to you. It may be after we come back to you. Is it possible, let's say, in the instance where it's after we seek that variance, after we come back to you, right?
When is
Would that be a condition? Could we, let's say we all get everything to work out, and last thing we have is the facade issue. Is there the ability for this body to grant a site plan approval condition based on granting site plan approval, or ZBA granting? Because if I don't get that, I get no site plan approval, right?
we can't grant the variance.
No, I'm not asking that. What I'm saying is, we have to seek that from the
Subject to-
ZBA. Let's say in the instance of timing, we come back to you, and we resolve everything We still have the facade variance to go get, right? This body has the ability to grant a site plan approval subject to the granting of a variance by the zoning board of appeals for the facade. And if we don't get the variance, there's no site plan approval because we don't meet the conditions of site plan approval.
So
I just wanna make sure mechanically.
To say, like, yes, we could do that, but I, as a board, the board that we've been together a while now, I think that might be something that we wouldn't feel comfortable approving if I can.
When is the next ZBA meeting? Do you know?
Yes, you can.
Yes, that's in
I'm sorry?
October 8th, I think,
30 days, deadlines.
I would also concur with Amanda's opinion that I would have a hard time granting site plan approval, knowing that there's a zoning variance that's out there.
Yeah.
That's just not like a clarification to a note on a drawing.
We like things clean and neat.
Yeah.
So did I hear you say that the deadline for the ZBA is already passed for the next meeting? When is their meeting?
October 8th.
8?
So
So-
could the solution be to have a secondary facade plan that would be in case a variance wasn't granted?
That would be smart.
But the condition of your approval would be, we go get a variance. If we don't get the variance, we don't have site plan approval.
Could opine on the Plan B. I mean, that's probably not a great option for you because
No.
you have the
When is
expense of coming up with a secondary.
Because if that's the case, then that means we're back to you in December.
The next PC.
Timing thing.
28 days in advance, so very soon.
That's what I'm saying, so if you're not coming back in October for this, the ZBA meeting in November happens before the planning.
It does. It happens on the 5th, I think.
How
Yeah.
much-
I'm sorry. We do allow 2 weeks in advance for revision
Okay.
for the original application. One of the things that the applicant may consider also is if you apply for a special rate. That would be plenty. So maybe you look at the November planning commission meeting after you've had a chance to get the variance, you know whether you got the variance.
It would certainly give the applicant time then to achieve all of the other.
Do you feel that you would have everything else to provide an updated site plan with MDOT and everyone else's approval in basically 3 weeks?
Yes.
I think the answer to his question is you may approve contingent, but you may also not feel comfortable.
Right. We have the right to do so, but we may not as a body do so. Does that give you an answer?
It does. Do I like it? No, but I don't have to like it. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, next item, please, Ms. Oparka.
Unfinished business, case 20-24S Benvenuto Restaurant, 39539 Jefferson Avenue.
Mr. Young, do you want to give a quick?
Yes, so the applicant and representation is here this evening. This is a proposal for the existing Benvenuto restaurant, which was damaged by fire earlier this year, I believe. They are looking to reestablish the restaurant at this location. And in addition to that, looking to expand by having an 828 square foot addition to the south of the building. The addition would bring the total restaurant square footage to 3,578 square feet. In addition to the building addition and reestablishing that restaurant, they are proposing additional site improvements, including an off-street parking lot for the property to the south, so that would be an expansion of their parking area, additional landscaping, a screening wall along the rear property line, a knee wall between the road and the expanded parking area, new lighting, and utility infrastructure. So you have the plan set in front of you. There are just a couple of items to be added to the plan. You can see like an indication of fire lane, maybe the fire chief fire marshal can weigh in on that as well. Some details about the ground cover for the landscaping, and a commitment to long-term maintenance of the landscaping, a commitment so that the owner understands that they keep the landscaping in good condition. Comment number 2 on the letter is with regard to the building addition. So this property is zoned V1 Village District. Unlike most of the other zoning districts that have a minimum required setback, front yard setback, the V1 district has a minimum required build-to line, so basically a 10-foot distance where you want the building to be located. The existing restaurant building is well behind where the V1 district would want. They could address that by putting the addition to the front of the building, bringing it closer to the road. Still may not hit it within that 10-foot window that the V1 district requires, but it would be moving it closer. They've chosen to put the addition to the south of the building, so it would be no closer to the road than the. So in reviewing that, that would be a variance. I believe they went to the.
I was not there,
And
but
did they get variance?
The minutes were included.
Yeah, we got
Yep.
Very good. So the variance for that, item number 2, has been granted by the ZBA, so you can kind of just strike that comment. Just a few other comments I had. There's an existing pole sign for that restaurant. The expanded parking lot would have a little bit of the maneuvering lane. It's going to be underneath that pole sign. Looks like the bottom edge of that sign. I'm not sure that a work truck or utility truck could fit without hitting that pole sign. So that's something that we have to address. Comment number 4, they do have an existing outdoor seating kind of deck area in front of the restaurant. For any outdoor seating area, we always require or want to have some sort of protection like bollards or something like that that would protect even that deck from a vehicle kind of coming in. So just putting some bollards around the perimeter between the deck and the parking area would cover that. One on the site plan, I think it's probably a typo. It labels a row of number 8 parking spaces. They're marked as 9 feet wide. The ordinance requires 10. I think they're actually 10 feet on the plan. So I think that's just a label issue that needs to be fixed. And then with regard to the circulation, so that new parking area, we're proposing to have kind of a maneuvering lane come in, and it'll be on the east side of the parking area. And it's 2 rows, and the way that it's designed right now, it would just be kind of 2 dead-end stubs off of that maneuvering lane on the east side. So if you're going to park there and there's no parking space, you're going to have to somehow back out. So they're providing more parking than is required. So in my mind, I think they can eliminate 4 parking spaces to allow for a 20-foot wide maneuvering aisle around the end to avoid that situation. That seems like a practical circulation issue.
Yeah, especially on that side of the building, yeah.
So those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Tanner, did you want to?
Yeah, so a lot of my comments were just general comments. The only thing that's really specific about requirements is Macomb County would need to approve the final stormwater upgrades. And then because there was a fire, probably recommended that the sanitary sewer be checked just to make sure it wasn't collapsed or plugged or anything. Maybe also provide some additional information on, is there any more recommended, or is there any more anticipated flow coming into the system that would cause the existing sanitary sewer lead not to be large enough? It wasn't identified the size of it. So that would be it.
Thank you. Fire Marshal Shackett?
Yeah, I got a couple things. In respect to the fire lane signs that Mr. Young spoke of, the way this structure is built and planned to be designed, fire lane signs aren't really needed. From an operational standpoint, we're not really pulling into the property so much that we need that because it's so tight in there. What we call a collapse zone, we would be in that collapse zone. So I'm not so concerned about the fire lane signs.
Okay.
Let me back up here. I speak a lot to this commission about FDC's fire department connections. Just want to explain what that is. I probably should do that. So when a building is sprinkled, it has a connection, usually a Y, that the fire department connects to if there's a fire and a sprinkler head is activated. It supplements municipal water supply. It's a requirement in the sprinkler code, building that is sprinkled. Where this is located currently, with the addition on there, it's not practical for us to access that. We would not safely, practically be able to do that. So with the addition of the building, they're gonna have to move that fire department connection. And I have no problem with the commission approving that under the understanding that that fire department connection will have to be moved during the construction phase. I don't know what the cost in that is. I don't know how that affects everything, but it's gonna have to be moved to the front that we can access it easier off of Jefferson. And to speak to the sanitary sewer with the fire, a lot of water was dumped on that fire, so checking the sewer probably isn't a terrible idea. It was plugged at one point during the fire. We were up to almost our waist and water, so, it's probably a good idea to do that again. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to come up, Mr. Maslowski?
My name is Lawrence Mislinski. I live at 32300 North River Road, and I'm here speaking in behalf of Ben Menudo's restaurant. Couple things. We have no problem removing 4 parking spaces on the west side to provide a turning lane there. We have no problem with inspecting the sanitary sewer. We would have it televised to make sure it's clear. The pole sign presently is 8 feet off the prevailing grades. We would take 2 feet off the bottom of the pole sign, so that is then 10 feet off the grade, and I think that would provide ample space for any high trucks going underneath it. The outdoor seating presently has a 3-foot high handrail around the perimeter. However, but if the commission insists, we will put bollards at 6 feet on center around the 2 sides where vehicles can have access to that. And I
So
think
that would be
that's
the east and south side.
on the south side and on the east side, yes. At 6 feet on center. Assuming that works out.
The fire marshal's requirement.
What we would do is we would meet with the fire marshal if it's to his liking and ask him exactly, come to an agreement with him about where he would want that connection located. Then we would designate that on the drawings.
And you have a copy of the Selfridge letter, which indicates no issues.
I do not. But if there's no issues, I don't need it.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. They're not recommending any changes to be compatible.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
is the 9-foot parking space label, is that a typo?
That's a
Oh.
typo.
So that is a typo?
Yes, it is. We had them at 9 spaces before, and when I changed them to 10 feet, I just missed that, so.
So eliminating the 4 spaces to allow for better traffic flow on that side of the building.
Yes, we're required to have 27 parking spaces, and that would give us 34.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Parking is kind of always a sticky subject.
Yes, it is.
On items, so thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yep,
the only other thing is whether the applicant is okay with adding a note to the plan committing to long-term maintenance of landscaping.
Yes, we are.
And then the last one is indication of all areas to be irrigated and method of irrigation. Doesn't necessarily say that it has to be like irrigation system, maybe there's another method of how they plan to irrigate.
so that would be a part of the landscape plan or in
Yeah, or
addition to?
notes that can be added.
So that would be including irrigation.
Could go along with their long-term.
Periodic irrigation with a portable sprinkler system. Is that acceptable?
I'll double check again. I believe the ordinance simply says that the place plan should indicate areas to be irrigated and method of irrigation.
And method, so it's up to the applicant to choose the method,
Let me just double check this one more time.
okay?
So I feel like the landscaping that's shown is pretty skimpy.
You want to talk about that?
Tiny trees. And then, that's okay. And then the 5 trees are 3-inch maples. Trying to move away from new maples.
Sure, we put in anything you want.
Well, I mean, I want you to put in what's going to survive there, but I also, as a region, we have a lot of maples, so if there's a new pest that comes out and destroys all the maples, and we've lost a lot of our tree canopy, so the DNR is recommending that things other than maples be planted in the majority. So some other, and maybe not all the same thing in case there is a blight or something.
How about sun versus locust?
Not black locust,
Pardon me?
honey locust is okay. Honey
This is the
locust.
township tree.
Black locust is invasive.
Sun locust is the township tree.
Be that as it may, if it's a black locust, it's on the county's list of trees not to plant.
Honey locust is good, though.
Honey locust is good.
We'll do honey locust.
Oaks are good. Help me out, Amanda. I mean, what's on
I
your-
mean, with that frontage.
Linden.
I would say something that flowers maybe.
Yeah.
Like a red bud or
Redbud
a
might not be
service
solid.
berry.
Yeah.
Red bud or what?
A service berry, something that has some color in the spring or fall. Sweet gums are nice in the fall, they turn bright red.
Okay, definitely some options.
And so I don't see any shrubs either around the building. Is that something that's planned?
We are not planting any shrubs at this juncture.
So just 10 trees is basically your landscape plan.
That's what the ordinance reads. I think it's your, 1 tree for each parking space, 1 tree for 35 feet of frontage.
It's very minimal.
That's your ordinance.
I stand by my words, it's very minimal.
It meets the maximum of your ordinance. It's not minimal.
Well, in that case, the ordinance is minimal.
I didn't write
And
it.
that's a minimum, right? It's not a maximum, it's a minimum.
the requirement.
Any other-
I will add one of the things that the applicant, the requirement of the V1 district that could be replaced by landscaping materials such as shrubs, but they are showing a new wall along the front.
With the trees located in front of
In
it.
front of the,
Which will go a long way to beautify that knee wall. Any other landscaping discussion?
Just, we look at a lot of landscape plans and it just doesn't seem to be on a par with what we look at.
So we would appreciate any additional landscaping that the applicant would provide to more beautify the site.
It's concrete all around the building,
Yeah. that is
concrete all around the deck.
That parking area, is that all concrete? No, that's gravel, isn't it?
Asphalt.
Are you with the applicant? Yeah, please come up. Yeah, please come up and let us know who you are.
Hello, my name is Brunilda, and I'm the owner of Benvenuto. As a flower, we've been honored as a township maintenance for the flower before awarded. So as a flower thing, I don't think it will be a issue because I love flowers. So adding more flowers to the whole building would not be no problem.
I was gonna mention their outdoor patio did have quite a lot of flowers on it.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, anything, Mr. Young, anything else you want to specifically?
so just kind of going through my list,
I'm going to talk about item
the
number 2.
applicant has indicated for all of my items that they're willing to make the necessary changes that we will put on a revised site plan. I guess the one item is whether, the 10-foot clearance for that sign. I mean, I understand they want to keep the existing sign. I guess I don't know, maybe fire marshal could weigh in or engineer could weigh in on whether 10 foot is good enough clearance for, the type of equipment and vehicles, workers.
To come and go?
Just gonna come there for lunch, whether that's appropriate. I mean, it's a very minor encroachment, but that aggregate will be a little bit into that neighborhood. I think that's something that's still outstanding. So that would be the only other item, maybe that's still a question on the letter. A couple of things that you had mentioned, a little bit more, vegetation or whatever, that would be something that I didn't address in my letter that you want to add that.
Well, let's address that sign location right now.
As far as the sign is concerned, we're willing to raise, or take off 3 feet off the bottom, would give 11 feet of clearance underneath it.
Does the engineer and the fire marshal, have any additional comment relative to that? To provide 11 feet distance between the ground and the bottom of the sign to accommodate any vehicles?
Yeah, for the fire department, 11 feet would be sufficient, because again, realistically, our trucks aren't gonna be really pulling in there too much. At most, it would be probably an ambulance, which 11 feet should be sufficient. I don't have the specs of our ambulance, but it should be sufficient, I would think.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tano?
Really no comment. 11
Okay.
feet should be adequate.
So 11 feet? 11 feet seems sufficient.
So I think that would do it for my letter, so if you choose to approve, just make it contingent on a revised plan that addresses the items noted in the letter.
Okay.
Number 2 was a moot point because we're granted.
I have a question about the bowen and said, the patio had a lot of flowers around it. It was a very inviting patio. Are we able to suggest some not bright yellow bollards? Like something that's maybe more nautical in nature, or silver, or just, I
Rope
hate
wrapped.
to see a bunch of bright yellow bollards around a brand new building and patio and.
I don't think we call out, our ordinance doesn't call out
I don't think we
type.
call
It just
out-
says a barrier of durable construction. So it's really however they want to construct it. It could be a wall. it could
Planter
be a-
boxes
Yeah.
that are concrete. Different alternatives.
But are we allowed to say we don't want the bright yellow concrete ones?
I think you're allowed to say that.
I would give my opinion that, like, I just thinking, you know, the DDA funded a project around the, liquor store on Jefferson, and they wanted bollards to protect their building, which was great, and they chose bright yellow ones. And those were affordable at the time, but there's so many other options that I think we would wanna see in the V1A district.
Yellow is generally the color that is chosen because it stands out and motorists can see it. But we'd be happy with green. Green would blend it with the flowers that she would plant around the patio.
I was thinking like the flower planter boxes, or, like I said, something more nautical, but that's just my suggestion, so.
Still sticking with the 6 foot on center.
Yeah. I agree with the bollard.
Placement.
I just, that's another ordinance change that needs to happen.
Put that on the list.
Yes.
The ordinance doesn't say it has to be a certain color, and it doesn't even say it has to be white.
Yeah. But I just think, could we say no?
No yellow.
Bright yellow.
No fluorescent.
concrete bollards.
Okay, commissioners, any other,
Yeah, I just had a question as far as the comment about item number 2. So once the variance was approved by the ZBA, it's a moot point, like,
Correct,
okay.
correct. Yep. Yeah. I think when I originally wrote that comment, they hadn't, maybe they had just applied, but they didn't get it to the ZBA. Pending their decision. If they didn't approve it, then we have to adjust the site plan accordingly, but they did, so that comment is not there.
The other question I had is, it does show on the floor plan that there are stairs going to a second floor. That's part of the existing structure, but does it require the floor plan for the second floor on the site plan?
Ask the applicant what that second floor is. For restaurant space, that would have it.
It is not for restaurant space. It is for utilities, it's for light storage. That is what it was used previously for.
I was just curious, I saw the stairs, but didn't see what it was going to and what was up there, so.
I'm sure they could add a note to the plan, the purpose of that second floor. Just be mechanical,
Yeah. That would cover it.
not be customer space.
Yes.
Now, if it was like an office or anything, is that included?
That would also, that would not affect.
It's just strictly seating space, okay.
anything additional? Commissioners? Mr. Young?
I don't have any.
Mr. Tanner?
Nothing.
Fire Marshal?
No.
Um,
I did have one more thing. The existing dumpster location with the 6-foot high screening wall, does it also require the front covering, doors or access? Does that need to be detailed on the site plan?
So it's an existing dumpster, existing dumpster location. it- So I basically want to, I asked, Larry, if it did add the plan indication of what, how it's being covered. If it was a new dumpster, it would require, it had to be a little bit bigger, you have to have the gate in front. I personally looked at it, in terms of the location, behind the building, an existing dumpster, that I didn't ask for any upgrades to that.
And how does the new parking layout impact access to that dumpster?
I think there's enough room, you can see that space between the new addition and that first southern row of parking.
Okay.
I think that was, it's 24, almost 25 feet in width. So it seems to me that access would be available.
Anything else? Commissioners? Mr. Mislinski, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the owner? Okay. Motion, please.
I have a question for the planner.
Okay.
I believe you started a research, and maybe
Oh, yeah.
about the irrigation system.
Yes. So what I had written in my letter is what the ordinance says. Indicate areas to be irrigated and method of irrigation. It doesn't, there is no language that says it shall be irrigated through underground sprinkler system.
So, fair. So the words that I looked at, it says site irrigation,
Areas
breath,
to be
sprinklers.
Yeah,
It does use the word sprinklers.
And that's in the site plan requirements, like what information needs to be included.
Right, so a sprinkler would be a in-ground apparatus.
Anything else, Ms. Rachel? Thank you. May I have a motion, please? There are no outstanding ZBA elements, correct?
Correct. The variance was great.
We did get a copy of that.
Yes. Yeah, no, copy
Oh,
of the
that's
minutes.
right, yep.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval for case number 20-24-S. Pending correcting the site plan regards to the planner's letter without item number 2, which was granted by the ZBA variance. Item 3, agreed to raise the sign to 11-foot clearance. And item 6, they agreed removing the 4 parking spaces for the access. also the items listed on the engineer's letter. Selfridge had no concerns, and any items listed by the fire marshal.
Okay. Just want to double check out sanitary sewer, remove the 4 parking places, shorten the sign, or increase to 11 feet. Add the bollards, or some form of parking lot protection, or pedestrian protection.
Some physical barrier of durable construction.
Be placed 6 foot on center. Following the fire marshal. Making note of the typo, 9 foot to 10 foot on the typing, on the spaces. Adding a note to the plan for long-term landscaping, including irrigation. Updating the landscaping to some acceptable form other than maples or black locust, I think you said?
There's a list in the zoning ordinance.
And the note for the second floor
Second floor,
purpose.
to declare the purpose of the second floor. May I have a second?
I'll support.
Mulder, Parka. Discussion on the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was some legitimate conversation about the architecture of the bollards, the details. I don't think I heard anything here. Did we want to, as the PC, or I guess the motion's the motion. So I guess I'll just leave it at, I know we had a lot of discussion about making them architectural. I didn't hear it in the motion, so I'll stop at that then and see where if you want to address that.
I believe there is a recommendation given. I don't believe we can specify, just based on the ordinance, saying it just be a physical barrier of durable construction, but we gave a recommendation as to the architectural design.
Does that have to be part of the motion? Because normally the words that are said here don't end up anywhere in the minutes, but the motion will. So if it's in the motion to make some reference to it being architectural, pick the words, I don't want to get there. I think it's stronger if you make it in the motion that we're looking for an architectural solution to the physical barrier. Now, that has not dictated the solution, just that we're looking to get something that's just not purely functional. So we want something architectural. Fair?
Yes.
And then they can come up with what,
Put on center, keeping in mind the comments made at the planning commission regarding architectural.
sure.
Okay. I'll make that, I wasn't sure if you had a second item, or did you?
Yeah, I did. Back to the trees. I think the way, and maybe, Adam, you could clarify this, the way I've interpreted the ordinance, I've interpreted there's 2 criteria. One for every tree per 35 feet of frontage, check mark. Then I also read, in addition to, 1 for every parking place. Is that interpreted correctly?
Yes, they actually are showing 10 total trees
Okay.
proposed. So that would be where they get the, according to the site plan, 1 tree per each 10 parking spaces. Based on the number of parking spaces, they would need 4. And then 1
Right.
tree for each 35 linear feet of frontage, they would need 6, so 10 total.
All right.
And they're showing 10 total.
All right. Then I strike my second comment. So is it only the bollards?
And I will amend my motion to mention specifically the planning commission's recommendation to use something architecturally appealing to meet item number 4 in the planner's letter of a physical barrier of durable construction around the outdoor dining area.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Case number 20-24-S, Benvenuto Restaurant, pending updated corrected site plan, addressing the items from the planner's letters, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 6.
Not number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Number 2
yeah,
is
minus number 2, thank you. I put a minus sign and read right over it. Minus number 2, but to include number 3, number 4, as recommended, architecturally appealing barrier. And then item number 6. And then, do we have yes, we have outstanding items on the engineer's letter, so addressing those items as well. And then I don't think there was anything outstanding. Oh, yeah, the FTC requirement, and we talked about that. Okay. Motion by Mr. Mulder, seconded by Ms. Oparka, and no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We look forward. Partaking, eating, drinking, enjoying, seeing it complete. Pardon?
Not seeing a burned out
Yeah,
building.
not seeing a burned out building. Thank you so much.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Walking distance.
There's a time for public comments at the end of the meeting. There'll be a time for public
Yep,
comments.
we're almost there.
But-
We are almost there.
Okay.
We're almost there. If you want to take a seat.
I was here when they
Okay, and, that's fine, at the end. We didn't have a public hearing on this item, so there wasn't public comment during the course. But you'll be able to address your. Go ahead and have a seat, and we're definitely gonna get to you. Okay. Unfinished business? Oh, I'm sorry, that was. No new business? Mr. Young? Correspondence?
So we have correspondence. City of St. Clair Shores provided a notice that they have prepared a draft master plan. I downloaded a copy of their draft master plan, and also it was related to the Clinton Township master plan from last month, meeting, or 2 months ago. I looked at both the Clinton Township master plan and this St. Clair Shores master plan, particularly along the areas where they border Harrison Township. So in the case of St. Clair Shores, it's just a very small area, just off of Jefferson Avenue, where they are showing in the future land use plan, single-family residential, or traditional neighborhood residential, as they call it, which is across from where we have similar planned areas, single-family residential. So I didn't see any issues with the master plan in terms of conflict. And then retroactively, going back to the discussion about Clinton Township master plan, there's a larger area of shared border. But the case is also very similar, where essentially where we have, starting up at Hall Road, commercial across from where we just rezoned commercial. They do have a little bit of industrial area in that corner just south of their commercial off of Hall Road. But then continuing along, it's essentially like for like residential, where we have it south of kind of Crocker, we have multifamily, they also have multifamily. And then further, toward the south end, it's more single family and kind of mixed family. I didn't see anything egregious in terms of the Clinton Township master plan, so I wanted to share my comments. Of course, if you wanted me to, write a letter to them and submit particular comments that you had as planning commission, I'd be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Could I also note that Danielle and I have been working with the city of St. Clair Shores. They're including resiliency in this new master plan, the same as we have in
That's
ours.
wonderful.
So it's nice to have us waterfront
Continuity.
communities all thinking about
Yeah.
resiliency.
Yeah, they have some interesting stuff. They show where, flooding has occurred in the past. They have some maps some kind of recommendations and ideas for, similar to what we addressed. So it'd be a good review for everyone.
Thank you. Anything else?
I do have comments from the planner. I don't know if they're
Yep,
on that yet.
you're there.
We had a tech team meeting. Yeah, it was just last week. Yeah, we had 3 cases. The first case was Ali Luabi. This is at 25450 North River Road, so this is really close to the I-94 and North River Road. He is looking at the possibility, he owns the party store. Looking at the possibility, he owns the adjacent property as well. There's some undeveloped space on that adjacent property. He'd like to develop that for a gas station. We went through ordinance requirements. It would be kind of a complicated project. The first step that he would need is to actually seek the rezoning for where his party store is, which is only C1 district. The adjacent property that he owns is C2. That allows a gas station as a special land use, I believe. But since the gas station will extend across both properties, we want him to rezone the party store to C2. It'll have to be a split combination kind of thing. I believe he just applied, so we'll have that rezoning. He'd have to come back then with site plan and special land use review and approval for the planning commission. There's a number of items. So it was a discussion-only meeting. Lots to discuss for that one. So obviously, anything that would happen is going to come up. The second item was a generator in the industrial district along Production Drive. That one was approved. Provided screening would be required if the generator was visible from the public street. And then the third item was also a discussion-only item. This was 42449 Irwin Drive in the industrial district. This is an existing junkyard or salvage yard, and they're looking to put up a new pole barn style building to help store some of the outdoor equipment, whatever you want to call it. So, that one, because of the size of the building, would require site plan review. There were some things that they needed to address, setbacks and whatnot. You might be seeing this application. So that's what I had.
Well, thank you. No additional comments, though? No. Thank you very much. Comments from the floor? Please come up and tell us who you are and give us your address. I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes, which is the standard.
Can I hand out some information to you to help?
You certainly can.
Okay. First, my name's Patrick Huffstetler, 38475 Long Street, and this is in regards to the Benvenuto property.
And I just want to say that comments from the floor, there's not a lot of back and forth discussion. It's just an opportunity
Sure.
for you to share your comments.
First time here. So.
Okay, great. Yep, that's okay. No, please do.
Just some record. No to you. I don't know what's
Thank you.
exactly proper. But I thought I'd have some material so you can at least understand what I'm talking about. So, I'm the owner of the residential family duplex just
You want to go
south-
ahead and give us your name?
I'm sorry, Patrick.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay,
Okay.
good. Yep.
Oh, yeah, I'm the residential, the first two pages are a picture of my duplex, and it's just south of Benvenuto's. The third picture is, you can see my duplex, it has Huffstetler on it right there. It's not a building, it's a residence, okay? So I've had 2 families in there for north of 4 years. They're raising kids, dogs, all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to lose them, of course, they're great tenants. So I'm here really on behalf of them and myself. It looks like the rear wall has been accounted for, and there's a front wall on the parking lot. This parking lot is about 120-foot extension, so it's significant. And it's putting spaces, as you can see, if they pull in head first, they'll be shining their headlights right at my property. All I'm requesting is a wall along that parking lot to protect my residents and the value of my property. I've looked around the neighborhood. I've been here forever, born here in '61, and looked at other walls. I included a snapshot of your village. That's all zone Village 1, I think, there. And I took this snapshot of your what I believe was the proper ordinance for this. I looked at other places, including the bank, Bentley's, Botown Willie's, River Rat. Took pictures of their sign, all their fences. Every single property out there is totally fenced off from all the residents for their parking structure. There's no exception. Okay, and even the old, even Benvenuto's had one on their rear, and it wasn't a bother because their parking was 200 feet away from me for years. So, and I'm not knocking them. I think it's great. I'm glad they're rebuilding. I'm glad they're adding parking. I'm just saying I think it's very important for the value and the privacy of my tenants, my families, that a fence be put up there to protect them from sound and light. That's my only request.
Thank you very much.
Was that clear?
That's very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What should I do next? Wait? Do I contact someone?
You can. You also have access to the ordinance online. You are welcome to contact the building department at any time, the building secretary or our engineer. I don't know, Mr. Young, I know we don't generally have back and forth under these situations. Is there any information that you can provide right now regarding that?
Yeah,
perimeter?
just, there is no ordinance requirement for screening between B1 district properties. The residential to the south is also zoned B1. There actually is a 40-foot piece of property that is owned by, I think, Benvenuto, but was not part of this development. So separating the edge of the new expanded parking lot and the duplex is a 40-foot wide piece of property that's proposed to be remain undeveloped, and it's basically just grass. So in that sense, this isn't even directly adjacent to residential use, and certainly not directly adjacent to residential use. So there is no ordinance. Yeah. I don't know what else to say other than, the comments, we can share them with the building department. It will have to come before us. We'll like to submit the revised site plan. Your condition. Okay. And then we'll need to get a building permit. You can mention that it was requested that they consider, the use of the property itself.
And that's because the ordinance states that property is zoned for single-family use. So it would have to be a single-family zone.
Yeah, I did look into this. I was curious about the no screening over there, but because it was in the B1, I looked at the requirements, and also with that property as a buffer zone,
Right.
I didn't approach the subject.
So
Certainly the applicant can put up a privacy fence along his northern property.
or the neighbors,
The neighbor, I'm sorry.
the neighbors
up a
can
privacy
put up
fence.
screening of their own choice. Okay. But you can't exceed 6 foot high or something.
Right. They would have to follow the rule.
So you understand why this ordinance doesn't apply to your property, right?
Not really, but I'm thinking if there's a rear screen that's protecting property in the rear yard, and that property in the rear yard is a good deal further away than my property is from that parking lot, I think that should be a consideration. I mean, if I was 60 or 80 feet away from it, I could understand, but I'm not, okay? And I'm much closer than any other residential property to that parking lot.
Yeah, it's based on zoning. Making them screen it, the applicant screen it, is based on zoning. So, your zoning doesn't match.
But I thought there was something special that you can consider when you're building in your village propositions into residential areas. It's a residence.
But it's not zoned residential.
Was it? I don't know. I mean, everything along there is residence. From my house forward,
The
those are all
use and the
residents.
zoning are two different things.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the documentation, and please feel free to get with the,
To install your own screen.
yeah. Yeah, and then feel free to get with the building department for any clarification needed. We look forward to attending the next PC. Okay. Any additional comments from the floor? Our next meeting, Thursday, October 17th, 2024. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Seconded.
Mr. Mulder, Ms. Devler. 9 o'clock straight up. Thank you, everyone. See you in a month.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, opposed? Motion carries.